Okay. Imagine this. You're 5 hours away from home at a basketball tournament. You and an opponent go up for the rebound, and as she rips down the ball, her elbow smashes into the back of your head where your head and neck meet. Your vision goes black. You're dizzy and walking unevenly. You can't remember where you are or how you got there. You hear mumbles from what sounds like your coach, but you can't make out what he's saying due to the loud, constant ringing in your ears. The doctors don't know what is wrong with you. Your parents take you to the hotel, and you just lay in a dark, silent room for the rest of the weekend due to how sensitive to light and sound you really are. Well, this was me. This was my first of 3 concussions. This is why I urge you to be more conscious of concussion symptoms, because this occurred before concussions were a growing problem, and even the doctors were not as well versed on the injury. If you learn about concussions, you too will be able to prevent this from happening, because concussions can lead to detrimental brain damage. The problem is that people don't know what concussions really are. They just know that a concussion is a head injury. I have a lot of background knowledge on sports injuries, especially ones relating to the head like concussions from research and experience. Learning about concussions is important, so I will tell you the causes and symptoms of concussions, second impact syndrome, and why you should familiarize yourself with the causes and symptoms to prevent second impact syndrome. One of the most important aspects of being aware of how you can get one and the symptoms that will indicate one. About 4 to 5 million concussions occur each year, according to Headcase, a company whose main focus is head injuries. As reported by the Mayo Clinic, a nonprofit medical practice and research group, the main causes of concussions include violent blows to the back of the neck and a sudden acceleration or deceleration of the head, also known as whiplash. Sports-related concussions make up about 50% of all concussions that occur annually. However, the other 50% are made up of mainly recreational bicycling and car accidents. So this is a graph of the 50% of concussions, like how you can get them that are not sports-related. According to Brainline, a company whose function is to help prevent, treat, and live with traumatic brain injuries, the main symptoms of concussions, they name the main symptoms of concussions to be chronic head and neck pain, dizziness, loss of balance, nausea, increased sensitivity to light and sound, ringing in the ears, and blurred vision. Other symptoms of concussions include loss of consciousness, vision loss, and memory loss, and vomiting. Since there are so many symptoms, concussions have been put into 3 levels, grades 1, 2, and 3. As the grade increases, so does the degree of symptoms that you will experience, with grade 3 being the worst and resulting in a loss of consciousness. Catherine Bongo, my old athletic trainer, said in her speech on head injuries that with any loss of consciousness, the individual should with any loss of consciousness associated with concussions, the individual should be taken straight to the hospital. Since symptoms can be very severe for concussions, it is important to know why you shouldn't return to sports before all of your symptoms are initially gone. SportsMD is a website that focuses on any injuries relating to sports, and they say that out of every 1,000 people who get a concussion, only about 11 of them suffer from second impact syndrome. According to the Brain and Spinal Cord Organization, second impact syndrome is severe swelling of the brain and the brain's inability to autoregulate itself. So this is the difference between a normal brain and a brain that has incurred a brain injury with widespread cerebral swelling, just like second impact syndrome. So you can see in the middle of the brain starts to swell from the inside out and eventually could kill you. This occurs, second impact syndrome occurs when the individual suffers from a second concussion before the initial symptoms of the first concussion were gone. If someone suffers from second impact syndrome, they have a dramatic increased risk of death and typically die soon after receiving the impact of the second concussion. Rowan Stringer was a 17-year-old from Ottawa who died from second impact syndrome in 2014. A doctor, Chris Nowinski from the Sports Legacy Institute in Boston, called her parents and asked if they can have her brain to determine her exact cause of death. It was found out that she had suffered from a concussion just 3 weeks prior to her death, but this was not the first. Minutes before her death, she was in a rugby match and received a light hit to the head. This light hit was severe enough to kill her because she still suffered from symptoms of her first concussion. Roger Byard, a professor of pathology at the University of Adelaide, states in his journal article, The Second Impact Syndrome, the effects of the syndrome and how doctors are now more recently able to determine the degree to which second impact syndrome affects a patient and how to help them. I'm sorry, I'm sick. Second impact syndrome is a fatal flaw of concussions, and so if you are in the know about concussions, you can prevent this fatality from happening. It's important to familiarize yourself with the causes and symptoms of concussions so that you can prevent them, because many concussions go untreated due to a lack of knowledge on the individual on this topic. Imagine if your friend suffers from a concussion they received when they were in a car accident and didn't know that they had one, then decides to play a friendly game of soccer and gets hit in the head. This second hit could cost them their life. How about if they suffer from a concussion, but you know the signs and symptoms and how to properly treat them? You could save their life. Full 90 is a company that produced special headgear that an individual can wear when they return to sports to protect their heads from further concussions. However, you should be timid before putting this headgear on, because due to the fact that people are more inclined to think that they still can't get more concussions and put themselves in risky situations because they have the headgear on. Full 90's motto is keeping you in the game, but essentially, many times they go against the opposite of what they're trying to promote. So this is the headgear, and it kind of wraps around the front and back of the head so that it can protect, like if you get hit on any side of your head, but really it's just a way for people to think that they can't get hit, and they'll still get a concussion even if they're wearing one. Many companies attempt to develop products that can get people back into playing sports soon after they receive a concussion, but the only thing that can heal a concussion is time. Familiarizing yourself with concussion signs and symptoms could save a life. You don't need to take a class on head injuries to further your knowledge on concussions. If you simply take the small list that I passed out to you and post it on your fridge, you can be more aware of concussions and help protect yourself and the people you care about. Many people lose loved ones each year because they think that these crazy freak accidents can't happen to them, but they can, and you can stop them from happening. Every time you go to the fridge, just read over this list so you can be surrounded by the people that you love. Thank you.